everybody, it's Amber again with Select Home Care, and look who's back.
I'm back.
So Bryce here is back this week, so we are here to give you another episode of Family Friday. We are really excited for this week's topic because it's a question that's been asked of me almost every day this week, actually. So we think it's super important to cover this question.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we're talking about what happens when you need to change your schedule. So, I mean, this happens all the time, right? And this is one of the biggest barriers to wanting to sign up for a service is that your needs today may not be your needs tomorrow. And because needs change sometimes on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, you don't want to be locked into anything long term and to end up holding the bag on something that you didn't even use. And so that's a big concern for a lot of families. So let's talk a little bit about how we handle schedule changes.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we come meet with you guys, one of the main things is we're going to try to create what I call a baseline schedule. So I'm going to dig in and ask certain questions. What is like the hardest parts of the day and what is the hardest care that you need help with? So once we establish that, then we're going to talk about more of your needs and wants in a schedule. And then after that, we know life does not always work perfectly and as planned. So your needs are going to probably change as just happenstances happen, life happens. So something we best do is you come back to us and you say, hey Amber, you know what? Mom needs a little more care in the next couple weeks. We're going to be out of town. Is that a big deal? Can we have someone here 8 hours instead of 4 hours? So I'm going to be like, yes, absolutely. So that's something that we work for. So as much time in advance is best for us, but if we have at least 24 hours notice is I think our golden rule of scheduling, we can normally still make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. The idea behind it is that, typically when there's plans, they're planned, right? And so those plans, we want to know when you know, because especially if you're trying to maintain consistency, if you're trying to, maintain a certain amount of care or whatever it is, it's much easier to do that when we know ahead of time, and we can move that caregiver schedule around, or they can make preparations in their personal life. So whenever possible, having over 24 hours and even upwards of like a week is always great. Now, that doesn't mean that if you have a need, so let's say that unexpectedly there's a family emergency out of state, right? It doesn't mean that you can't still call us, and we're going to do everything in our power to make those things happen for you. And I'd say pretty comfortably, somewhere between 8 and 9 times out of 10, it happens, right? Yeah. But again, talking about your ideal of like having the same caregivers, having the same everything, that may not happen under that 24 hours. And so that's typically where that comes in, and that 24 hours especially comes in. The only other time that it becomes an issue is when it comes down to canceling under 24 hours. And this is, big asterisk, this is something that's unique to us as a part of our ability to, keep incredible caregivers. We give them the security of saying if we cancel on them under 24 hours, with the exception of hospitalization and death, if we cancel on them in under 24 hours, we still pay them for that shift. So we pass that along to the families because that's the whole point, right? So for our caregivers, it's more like 23 and a half hours, right? But the idea is that, that 24 hour deadline helps families. And again, emergencies happen, but typically, if the emergency doesn't include hospitalization or somebody passing, right. We want to be able to maintain that consistency for the caregiver. Yeah,
absolutely. Because retaining good caregivers is such a specialty that I think we pride ourselves on here. So, and another, I think we're special in the fact that
you're very special, Amber.
That because life does happen, we need to give families the availability to like almost like roller coaster their service if needed. So that flexibility to go up and back down to 0 to 2 hours, all the way up to 24-hour care, living care, and back down. So that is something that we can accommodate as well. So don't think if you schedule, 6 hours today, you have to keep that 6-hour schedule, or if you change it within for an hour or two extra, that's all the grace period you have. That's not the case at all with us. We want you guys to be comfortable in knowing that your loved one's cared for in all times that they need the help, and give you guys that break. I think we come back around to that in almost every one of these videos we're doing is we're trying to help the family members as well take some of that stress off their plate, because I kind of always say you're no good to your loved one if you're overstressed and overworked and tired and exhausted and worried. So we try to accommodate any of that and be absolutely as flexible as possible.
Yeah, and I want to talk real quick about a tactic for family members that have a parent or a spouse that is resistant to care, but they know that they need the help. This is a great opportunity to use a flexibility, a company like ours that has this flexible of a setup to be able to say, listen, if after 24 hours, 24 hours before, if you feel like you need to scale up or down care, which, for a family member that's hesitant, you can always scale down, right? You can say, let's start with 4 hours and see if that's too much, right? Okay, 4 hours is too much. Let's go down to 3 hours. Okay, let's start going down to, let's try 3 days a week. You can make those changes on a regular basis until you find that sweet spot. And then once you find that sweet spot that works for them, that's when you just kind of go off into the sunset with it, right?
Right.
And that's something that I've seen time and time again. Family members don't know about that kind of thing until they're sitting with us and they go, oh yeah, that is a good idea, right? So use that strategy ahead of time to start that conversation when, the conversation about, we'll need to do a whole other video on the difficult conversation of talking to a family member that needs care.
Right.
But that is something that as you're dealing with that 24-hour flexible policy is so important in trying to help with that stick factor with a family member that's resistant to care.
Yeah. And always remember, you don't know what you don't know. And that is okay. That's why you reach out for resources and, forms of education and ask questions. I think that's the biggest thing I can say to families is just ask the questions. Is this a possibility? Is this a possibility? Because we are going to put you in the right direction.
Yep.
That is a guarantee I will stand behind, that we will always point you in the right direction, whether it's a resource we're able to provide, or we'll point you in the right direction to find that resource to help you. So the schedule thing is a very, very common question. So, but guys, thanks so much for joining again. We're getting more and more excited to do these videos. The questions just keep coming, and we are really grateful that we have the opportunity to get this information, these answers out to you guys. So stay tuned next week. We got another really good one for you next week.